The morning sun cast long shadows through the tall windows of Kensington Palace as Sarah Whitfield adjusted her uniform for what seemed like the 100th time. She had been working as a junior staff member in the royal household for only 3 months, but the weight of her financial troubles pressed heavier on her shoulders with each passing day. Her mother's medical bills had been piling up, and, despite the honor of working for the royal family, her modest salary barely covered their basic needs. Sarah moved through the princess's private quarters with practiced efficiency, dusting the ornate furniture and arranging fresh flowers in crystal vases. The room still carried the faint scent of Princess Diana's favorite perfume, even though she had left early that morning for a charity engagement. As Sarah worked, her eyes kept returning to the mahogany jewelry box that sat on the vanity table. She knew what treasures lay inside, she had seen them many times during her cleaning duties. The palace operated like clockwork, with every staff member following strict protocols and schedules. Sarah had memorized the routines of everyone who worked in this wing. She knew that at precisely 10 o'clock, the head of housekeeping would be in a meeting, the security guards would change shifts, and she would have exactly 15 minutes alone in the princess's chambers. Her hands trembled as she approached the jewelry box. Inside her mind, two voices battled fiercely. One reminded her of her dying mother, of the specialists they couldn't afford, of the medicines that might give her a few more precious years. The other voice spoke of honor, trust, and the kindness Princess Diana had shown her during their brief encounters. The princess had always been different from what Sarah expected. Instead of maintaining the cold distance typical of royalty, Diana would often stop to chat with staff members, asking about their families and remembering small details from previous conversations. Just last week, Diana had noticed Sarah looking particularly tired and had gently inquired if everything was all right. Sarah had mumbled something about family concerns, and Diana had touched her shoulder with genuine compassion. Now, standing before the jewelry box, Sarah's fingers hovered over the intricate gold clasp. She knew the contents by heart: the sapphire earrings, the pearl bracelets, and, most valuable of all, the diamond necklace that had been a wedding gift from the Queen. The necklace alone could solve all her problems. One quick movement, and her mother could receive the treatment she desperately needed. The palace halls remained silent as Sarah slowly opened the box. The diamonds caught the morning light, sending rainbow patterns dancing across the walls. Each stone seemed to mock her poverty while simultaneously offering salvation. She had researched carefully, she knew people who could help her sell such items discreetly, though the thought made her stomach churn with guilt. As she reached for the necklace, memories of her job interview flooded back. The stern-faced butler had emphasized the trust placed in every member of the royal household. Background checks had been thorough, references scrutinized, and she had sworn an oath of loyalty. Her mother had been so proud when she got the position, telling all the neighbors that her daughter worked for the Princess of Wales. The cool metal of the necklace touched her fingertips, and, for a moment, time seemed to stop. Sarah thought of all the nights she had spent by her mother's bedside, watching her grow weaker, knowing that money could buy better care, perhaps even a cure. The unfairness of it all, that one necklace could save a life, while to its owner, it was just one piece among many. She lifted the necklace from its velvet cushion, the weight of it surprising her. As she held it up, the morning sun transformed it into liquid light. For a brief moment, she allowed herself to imagine handing the money to the doctors, seeing her mother's face when she learned she could have the surgery. The fantasy was so vivid she could almost taste the relief. But, beneath the desperation, something else stirred. Sarah remembered her first day at the palace, how proud she had felt walking through those historic gates. She thought of Princess Diana's trust, extended so freely to all who served her. The princess, who herself had struggled within these golden walls, who understood pain and loneliness despite her privilege. The sound of footsteps in the corridor jolted Sarah from her thoughts. They were too early, the shift change wasn't supposed to happen for another 10 minutes. Panic seized her as she stood frozen, the necklace still dangling from her fingers like evidence of her betrayal. The footsteps grew closer, measured and authoritative. She recognized that particular gait, it wasn't a guard or another servant. Her heart plummeted as she realized who was approaching. In her careful planning, she had overlooked one crucial detail: Prince Charles sometimes returned unexpectedly to his study, which required passing through this wing of the palace. The door handle began to turn, and Sarah's mind raced. She could try to return the necklace to its box, but there wasn't time. She could pocket it and pretend to be cleaning, but the open jewelry box would betray her. Or she could stand there, caught in the act, and face whatever consequences awaited. As the door opened, Sarah made her choice. She remained where she was, holding the necklace, making no attempt to hide her actions. Prince Charles entered the room, and his expression shifted from mild surprise to shock as he took in the scene before him. The morning light that had made the diamonds sparkle now seemed harsh and unforgiving, illuminating every detail of Sarah's transgression. The prince stood in the doorway, his tall frame blocking any possibility of escape. His eyes moved from Sarah's face to the necklace in her hands, then to the open jewelry box. The silence stretched between them like a chasm, filled with unspoken accusations and the weight of broken trust. Sarah waited for him to call for security, to rage at her betrayal, but Charles did something unexpected. He quietly closed the door behind him. Prince Charles had seen many things during his years in the royal family, but the sight before him struck him with unusual force. The young woman holding Diana's necklace wasn't a hardened criminal or a calculating thief, he could see that in her eyes. What he saw instead was desperation mixed with profound shame, a combination he recognized all too well from his charitable work with struggling families across Britain. He remained silent for a long moment, studying Sarah's face. Tears had begun to stream down her cheeks, but she made no move to wipe them away. She stood like a statue, still holding the necklace as if she had forgotten it was in her hands. Charles noticed how thin she had become since starting work at the palace, how her uniform hung loosely on her frame. "Put it down," he said quietly, his voice lacking the harsh authority Sarah had expected. She immediately placed the necklace on the vanity table, her hands shaking violently. The prince moved further into the room, maintaining a careful distance that seemed designed to prevent her from feeling cornered. "What's your name?" Charles asked, though he prided himself on knowing most of the household staff. Sarah's voice came out as barely a whisper when she replied. He had to ask her to repeat it. The second time, she managed to speak more clearly, though her voice still trembled. Charles pulled out a chair from Diana's writing desk and sat down, a gesture that brought him to eye level with the terrified young woman. This simple act of reducing his physical dominance in the situation seemed to surprise Sarah. She had expected immediate dismissal, perhaps even arrest. Instead, the prince appeared genuinely interested in understanding what had driven her to this moment. "Tell me why," he said simply. It wasn't a command but an invitation. Sarah's legs suddenly felt unable to support her, and Charles gestured to another chair. She sank into it gratefully, though she kept her eyes fixed on the floor. The story came out in fragments at first: her mother's illness, the mounting medical bills, the specialists who demanded payment up front. As she spoke, Charles listened without interruption. He had learned this skill through years of public service, the ability to truly hear people's struggles without judgment. Sarah explained how she had tried everything else: loans that were denied due to her lack of collateral, extra jobs that interfered with her palace duties, selling everything of value her family owned. The prince's expression remained thoughtful as Sarah described watching her mother deteriorate, knowing that money could make a difference. She spoke of sleepless nights calculating and recalculating finances, of choosing between food and medicine, of the crushing weight of powerlessness in the face of illness. Her voice broke completely when she mentioned how her mother still insisted she was proud of her daughter working at the palace. Charles stood and walked to the window, gazing out at the manicured gardens below. He was processing not just Sarah's individual situation but what it represented: the countless others facing similar impossible choices. His position had afforded him the best medical care without question, while this young woman was willing to risk everything for a chance to save her mother. "Do you know what this necklace means to the princess?" he asked, turning back to face Sarah. She nodded miserably, fresh tears falling. "It was a wedding gift from my mother, the Queen. But, more than that, Diana wears it to state occasions where she raises money for hospitals and medical research. Last month alone, her appearance at a charity gala wearing this very necklace helped raise over £1 million for cancer research." Sarah's face crumbled as the full impact of what she had almost done hit her. She hadn't just been stealing from the princess, she would have been stealing from all the people Diana's charitable work helped. The prince watched as this realization dawned on her, seeing the profound shame deepen in her eyes. I'm ready to go, Sarah said quietly, standing on unsteady legs. I'll pack my things and leave immediately. I understand if you need to involve the police. She moved toward the door, but Charles's voice stopped her. Sit down, Sarah. We're not finished talking. His tone remained gentle but firm. Confused, she returned to the chair. Charles resumed his seat as well, creating an atmosphere more like a private conversation than an interrogation. He asked about her mother's specific condition, the treatments available, and the costs involved. As Sarah provided more details, Charles pulled out a small notebook from his jacket pocket and began making notes. This unexpected action left Sarah bewildered. She had prepared herself for punishment, not for what seemed like genuine interest in helping. The prince asked specific questions about doctors, hospitals, and treatment options, displaying a surprising knowledge of the healthcare system's limitations. The National Health Service should cover basic treatment, he observed, and Sarah explained the gaps: the experimental procedures not yet approved, the specialists with year-long waiting lists, the medications deemed too expensive for standard coverage. Charles nodded, continuing to write. Sarah watched his pen move across the paper, wondering if he was documenting her crime for official reports. When he finished writing, Charles looked up at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. I need you to understand something, Sarah. What you attempted today was wrong, regardless of your motivations. The trust placed in royal household staff is sacred, and you violated that trust. Sarah nodded, accepting the condemnation she knew she deserved. However, Charles continued, and that single word made Sarah's heart skip. I also understand that desperation can drive good people to consider actions they would normally find abhorrent. The question now is what we do about it. He stood and walked to Diana's desk, where he knew she kept her personal stationery. As he wrote, he spoke without looking at Sarah. My wife and I have established several charitable foundations focused on healthcare access. We also have connections with leading specialists who sometimes take cases at reduced fees or pro bono. What you need isn't a stolen necklace, it's proper advocacy and support navigating the system. Sarah watched in disbelief as Prince Charles wrote what appeared to be a letter of introduction. He sealed it in an envelope and handed it to her. Take this to the address I've written on the front. It's one of our foundation offices. Tell them I sent you, and show them this letter. They'll assign someone to your mother's case immediately. Your Highness, I don't understand. Why would you help me after what I've done? Sarah's voice was thick with emotion and confusion. Charles returned to his chair, his expression serious but not unkind. Because I believe in second chances, and because the real crime here isn't just your moment of weakness, it's a system that drives good people to such desperation. You're clearly devoted to your mother, and that love, misdirected as it was today, deserves recognition. He paused, choosing his words carefully. But this help comes with conditions. Sarah leaned forward, ready to agree to anything. Charles outlined his terms. She would voluntarily resign from her position at the palace, citing family obligations. There would be no official record of what happened today. In exchange, she would receive not just help for her mother but also job placement assistance through royal charities, ensuring she could support herself and her family honestly. You'll also volunteer at one of our medical charities, Charles added. 20 hours a month, helping other families navigate the same challenges you faced. Turn your pain into purpose, Sarah. Help others so they never feel driven to the choice you almost made today. The terms were more than fair, they were generous beyond anything Sarah had imagined. She agreed immediately, gratitude overwhelming her. But one question nagged at her: what about the princess? Shouldn't she know what happened in her rooms? Charles considered this carefully. Diana has a generous heart, perhaps too generous sometimes. If she knew of your situation, she would likely want to help personally, but she would also feel betrayed by your actions. That conflict would pain her greatly. Sometimes, protecting those we care about means bearing certain burdens ourselves. He stood, indicating their conversation was ending. Pack your things quietly and leave within the hour. Report to the foundation tomorrow morning. And, Sarah? She looked up at him, seeing not the future king but a man who understood human frailty. "Don't waste this chance. Honor the trust I'm placing in you now, even though you broke it earlier." Sarah rose on shaking legs, overwhelmed by the unexpected turn of events. As she moved toward the door, Charles had one more thing to say. "The princess's necklace isn't just valuable because of its diamonds. It's valuable because of what she does while wearing it, the hope she brings, the funds she raises, the lives she touches. Remember that." With those words echoing in her mind, Sarah left the princess's chambers for the last time. As she walked through the palace hall she had come to know so well, she felt the weight of what had almost happened and the gift of redemption she had been given. The morning sun still streamed through the windows, but it no longer seemed harsh. Instead, it felt like the dawn of a new beginning. News of Sarah Whitfield's sudden resignation spread quickly through the palace staff quarters. The official story was simple and believable: family obligations required her immediate attention. Several colleagues expressed surprise at her hasty departure, as she had seemed dedicated to her position despite recent visible stress. The head housekeeper, while disappointed to lose a competent worker, processed the resignation without question, accustomed to staff turnover for personal reasons. Diana returned to the palace that afternoon, tired but fulfilled from her charity engagement. She moved through her chambers, changing from her formal attire into something more comfortable. Her eyes passed over the jewelry box on her vanity, noticing nothing amiss. The necklace lay exactly where it should, catching the afternoon light just as it had that morning, though now it carried a secret the princess would never know. In his study, Prince Charles made several discreet phone calls. His first was to the foundation director, explaining that a young woman would arrive tomorrow needing comprehensive assistance. His instructions were specific: treat her mother's case as a priority, explore all available options, and provide job placement services for Sarah herself. No questions were asked. The foundation was accustomed to the prince's personal interventions. His second call was to Sir Robert Fellows, the Queen's private secretary and Diana's brother-in-law. Charles chose his words carefully, mentioning only that he had encountered a staff member in severe personal distress and had offered assistance through proper channels. He suggested a review of support systems for palace employees facing family crises, framing it as a preventive measure rather than a response to any specific incident. Meanwhile, Sarah sat in her small room in the staff quarters, packing her few belongings. Her hands still trembled as she folded her uniforms, each crease a reminder of the trust she had nearly betrayed. The letter from Prince Charles lay on her narrow bed, its presence both a lifeline and a reminder of her shame. She had read it 3 times, still struggling to believe the words of introduction and recommendation it contained. A knock on her door made her jump. It was Margaret, another housemaid who had become a friend during Sarah's short tenure. Margaret entered with a concerned expression, having heard about the sudden resignation. Sarah stuck to the official story, mentioning her mother's worsening condition and the need to be closer to home. The lie came easier than the truth would have, though it burned in her throat. Margaret embraced her warmly, pressing a small envelope into her hands. "We took up a collection," she explained. "It's not much, but we wanted to help with your mum's care." Sarah opened the envelope to find several pound notes, clearly the result of staff members contributing what they could spare from their modest wages. This gesture of kindness from people who knew nothing of her near betrayal brought fresh tears to her eyes. As Sarah left the palace for the final time, she passed through the same gates that had filled her with such pride months earlier. The weight of her small suitcase was nothing compared to the weight of the second chance she carried. She thought of Prince Charles's words about turning pain into purpose, about helping others to avoid the desperate choice she had almost made. The next morning, Sarah arrived at the foundation office early, clutching the prince's letter. The reception area was warm and welcoming, a stark contrast to the formal palace environment. When she presented the letter, the receptionist's demeanor shifted to one of immediate attention. Within minutes, Sarah was ushered into a comfortable office where a kind-faced woman named Dr. Patricia Hartwell waited. Dr. Hartwell, it turned out, was the foundation's medical liaison. She listened to Sarah's story, the sanitized version about her mother's illness and her need to leave palace employment to provide care. If she suspected there was more to the tale, her expression didn't show it. Instead, she began making phone calls, her efficiency remarkable as she arranged specialist consultations and explored treatment options. Your mother's case is exactly why these foundations exist, Dr. Hartwell explained between calls. The prince and princess believe healthcare shouldn't be determined by wealth. We have arrangements with several leading oncologists who reserve slots for our referrals. We'll have your mother seen within the week. The speed at which things moved left Sarah stunned. Within days, her mother was admitted to a private hospital ward, receiving treatments that would have cost more than Sarah could earn in a lifetime. The doctors were cautiously optimistic, speaking of new therapies and improved prognosis. Sarah's mother, overwhelmed with gratitude, kept asking how this miracle had happened. Sarah spoke vaguely of palace connections and charitable programs, unable to reveal the full truth. 2 weeks after leaving the palace, Sarah began her volunteer work at the foundation's public clinic. Her supervisor, unaware of the circumstances that brought her there, praised her dedication and natural empathy with patients. Sarah threw herself into the work, finding purpose in helping others navigate the healthcare system's complexities. Each family she assisted felt like a small repayment of the debt she owed. One afternoon, while organizing files at the clinic, Sarah glanced up at the television in the waiting room. Princess Diana appeared on screen, attending a gala event. She wore the diamond necklace, the one Sarah had held in her trembling hands. But, now, instead of seeing just valuable jewelry, Sarah saw what Prince Charles had tried to explain. She saw a tool for charity, a symbol of compassion, a means of helping people exactly like those sitting in the clinic waiting room. The news report mentioned the millions raised that evening for medical research. Sarah thought of the researchers who would be funded, the treatments that might be developed, the lives that could be saved. She understood now that her desperate grab for that necklace would have rippled outward, affecting countless people she would never meet. The magnitude of what she had almost done, and what had been prevented, took her breath away. Back at the palace, Prince Charles occasionally received updates on Sarah's progress through discreet channels. He learned of her mother's improving condition, of Sarah's exemplary volunteer work, and of her eventual employment with a medical charity where her palace experience and newfound knowledge proved valuable. These reports satisfied him that his intervention had achieved its intended purpose. Diana, meanwhile, continued her charitable work, unaware of the drama that had unfolded in her chambers. She wore the necklace to several more events that season, each appearance raising substantial funds for various causes. The princess's natural warmth and genuine concern for others drew donors and supporters, her jewelry serving as a glamorous backdrop to her humanitarian efforts. The palace instituted new support programs for staff, including emergency hardship funds and better healthcare benefits. These changes were presented as general improvements rather than responses to any specific incident. Several staff members facing difficult circumstances benefited from these programs, never knowing they owed their existence to a moment of crisis in a princess's bedroom. Sarah's story spread quietly through the charitable network, though names and specific details were never shared. It became a teaching tale about compassion, second chances, and the importance of support systems. Foundation workers learned to look for signs of desperation in those seeking help, to offer aid before people felt driven to extreme measures. Months later, Sarah received an unexpected invitation to a foundation fundraiser. She attended hesitantly, still carrying shame despite her redemption. During the event, she found herself in the same room as Prince Charles, though protocol and crowds kept them from direct interaction. Their eyes met briefly across the room, and the prince gave an almost imperceptible nod of acknowledgement before turning back to his conversation. That small gesture meant everything to Sarah. It confirmed that her transformation was recognized, that she had honored the trust placed in her after breaking it so severely. She left the event with renewed determination to continue her work, to be worthy of the second chance she had received. As seasons changed, Sarah's mother's health stabilized and eventually improved beyond all expectations. The experimental treatments, funded through the foundation's programs, had succeeded where standard care had failed. Mother and daughter often spoke of their gratitude for the miracle that had saved them, though Sarah never revealed the full story of how close she had come to choosing a very different path. The diamond necklace continued to sparkle at royal events, its true value measured not in carats but in the millions raised for charity while it graced Diana's neck. Each time Sarah saw it in photographs or on television, she remembered the weight of it in her hands and the heavier weight of the choice she had almost made. It served as a permanent reminder of how desperation could cloud judgment and how compassion could offer redemption. Prince Charles never spoke publicly of the incident, and it remained absent from all official records. But those who worked closely with him noticed a subtle shift in his approach to charitable work, a deeper understanding of the desperation that could drive good people to dark moments. He became more vocal about addressing systemic issues that pushed people to such extremes, using his influence to advocate for better social support systems. The palace staff who had known Sarah remembered her fondly, occasionally wondering why she had left so suddenly. Some speculated about family pressures, others about better opportunities, but none guessed the truth. Her replacement proved competent but unremarkable, lacking the quiet dedication Sarah had shown before her moment of crisis. Years later, when Sarah had risen to a management position within the medical charity sector, she would sometimes share her story in vague terms with those facing similar desperation. She would speak of mistakes almost made, of unexpected mercy, and of the importance of seeking help before reaching a breaking point. Her words carried the weight of experience, though she never revealed the full details of her palace encounter. The morning sun that had illuminated Sarah's darkest moment continued to rise each day, casting light on new crises and opportunities for redemption. In grand palaces and humble homes alike, people faced impossible choices between survival and integrity. Sarah's story, known fully only to herself and one future king, stood as testament to the power of compassion to transform a moment of weakness into a lifetime of purpose. The diamond necklace remained in its velvet-lined box when not adorning the princess, a silent witness to the drama it had sparked. It had played its role not through theft but through remaining exactly where it belonged, allowing Diana to continue her charitable work unaware of how close it had come to disappearing. In staying put, it had perhaps accomplished more good than if it had been sold, saving not just one life but protecting the countless lives touched by the charities it helped support. And, in a quiet corner of London, in a modest flat where medical bills no longer threatened to destroy hope, an elderly woman often told visitors about her daughter who worked tirelessly to help others access healthcare. She spoke with pride of Sarah's dedication, never knowing how close they had both come to a very different story, one without redemption or second chances. The truth remained locked away, a secret shared between a desperate young woman and a prince who chose mercy over justice, understanding over condemnation, and hope over punishment.